What's up, guys? It's your boy, Radical. Now, my workout plans have been a success. More than 300 plus purchases and many more returning customers. You cannot ask for anything else, and people are loving it. The same life-changing and affordable prices still remain. So go to radicallatino.com and change your life today. Hey guys, do you have a product you want more eyes on? Advertise with the Radical Latino Show, where over 10K podcast downloads and the number 25 spot on the 55 All Latin podcast list. You'll want your product heard on everyone's phones and cars. Go to radicallatino.com/contacts and start advertising today.
Playing the Radical Latino Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands in the air for New York's very own.
Radical.
Latino is taking you to another level.
I think there's more radicals than civil. Radical Latino, no it. The radical point of views, I think his views are actually more dangerous.
What up, my people? It's your boy, Radical, aka number 17 on All Latin Podcasts, aka number 24 on All Bronx Podcast Influencer List, and also Mr. Unsuable for 77 weeks running. And remember, you can't spell radical without adding rad in it. You heard? Now, I hope everybody is having a great week. I hope everybody is having a great Wednesday. I hope everybody is having a wonderful week and aren't getting into any, foolishness and buffoonery and all that other stuff, because y'all my people, y'all smarter than that. You heard? You know what I'm saying? So I hope everything is going well. You know what I'm saying? This is episode 174. So remember, I hope you guys remember, like, share, subscribe, and also, this episode is sponsored by radfitpro.com. Go to radfitpro.com and enter the promo code RADICAL to get 10% off your CBD purchase. Radfitpro.com is a startup CBD company who specializes in CBD products. They have two right now, Cleopatra and Ogun, so definitely go check them out right now, today. Ahora, right now, today. You know what I'm saying? So, I got a lot of updates for you guys. Open wounds, right now is it's making its rounds. I'm getting a lot of emails and a lot of requests to put it on certain platforms, and I'm holding out. And certain people are holding out because they want to make sure I deliver like I delivered in part 1. And best believe I'm doing a lot, and I mean a lot, of my own ability to make sure I got part 2 in the same or higher quality that I had part 1 in. So definitely go wait on that. Stay tuned. I'm definitely going to make an announcement on that as well. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm reaching out to a lot of people. I'm reaching out to a lot of creators. I'm reaching out to a lot of creatives, and I'm making sure I am getting my worth due for y'all and for myself. You know what I'm saying? Remember, this documentary, Open Wounds, A Island Divided, is free on my YouTube channel. So you don't have to pay for it. It's completely free. This information is for y'all. The reason why I started it is because I want to know and learn a little bit more about how the dynamics between Dominican Republic and Haiti, how it happened, why did it happen, why is there animosity, why certain people feel a certain way, you know what I'm saying? And I wasn't okay with just it being racism. It had to be more than that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's all I heard. Oh no, it's just racism. No. I wasn't okay with that. it had to be more than that, and I'm finding out that it is. That's the point. It is more than that. It's a deep history. It's a very important history. It's also very rich history. You know what I'm saying? So definitely go check Open Wounds and Island Divided Part 1 out now on my YouTube channel, Radical Latino. It's making its rounds. The first day it got 2K views, you know what I'm saying, and it's going on up. Right now, as we speak, we're at 2.5. So definitely a huge shout out to everybody watching it now. Also, go check out my interview that I had with Art, this YouTuber named Art Nustal TV. I got the link down below. Go check it out. I went to his channel. We had a beautiful discussion. I broke everything down. I broke basically down how Latin America is, the racism, why whiteness is seen as a huge commodity in Latin America, and let's be honest, in all over the world, you know, whiteness is a beauty standard. This is something that we have to be real about. So definitely go check out that interview. Link down below. You know what I'm saying? Also, go check out my cousin's music, man. He goes by the name Raymond 15, Ramon 15, and he has a new song out called Elite. So definitely go check it out. A link down below. I'm playing it a little bit here, you know what I'm saying? So definitely go check it out. He's doing his thing in the Dominican Republic. Up and coming artist. Definitely, you know, go check him out. You know what I'm saying? Also, I am going to start taking my content and my podcast into a new direction. I've been doing 170 somewhat episodes on just giving you guys my opinions on episode, giving you guys what I thought about on episode, and pretty much is being repetitive. I felt like there's no new situation that I didn't cover, even though because it's new. You know what I'm saying? If I covered something a year ago, this same thing comes up with somebody else, and I cover it and I give my same opinion. You know what I'm saying? It's becoming pretty much repetitive. People pretty much know what I feel like in certain situations. People pretty much know my stance on certain things. People pretty much know my ideology. People pretty much know what I'm about and all that. So I'm taking my channel into a new direction. The podcast is no longer going to be just episodes on explaining this and doing that. It might still happen here and there, but right now I'm going to start doing interview episodes. That's basically it. I'm gonna start doing interview episodes. The more subs I get, the more bigger interviews I'm gonna obtain. You know what I'm saying? The more downloads I get for each interview, the more people I'm gonna keep on, you know, attracting in. So I just want to let you guys know my new direction. Just interviewing people that I find interesting, interviewing people that I want to have conversations with, interviewing people that I, you know, would like to ask certain questions that I feel that I need to ask. You know what I'm saying? So that's where my channel is going. That's where my podcast is going now. If something happens within the news media, whatever the case is, I'm definitely going to cover it on my YouTube channel. I'll make quick videos, give my reaction. That's basically it. That's how I'm seeing, and that's how I'm planning on doing things. You know what I'm saying? So, and also Saturdays are going to be just live stream about certain topics, interesting topics. Doesn't matter what it is. We're going to basically talk about it. So that's what I am going to be basically doing. So if you guys like the direction or like the idea, let me know in the comments down below. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, This is episode 174. I'm gonna read comments from episode 173. And that was a interview with Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. Shout out to that brother. You know, a lot of people was amazed that I had a certain individual like that on my channel. Shout out to him. I don't really care if we agree or disagree. The whole point is we had our conversation. I got to pick his brain, he got to pick my brain, and you know, we went on for it right then and there. You know, just because he disagreed with certain my stance or I disagreed with certain stance doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? We had a very, very polite conversations, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I got to know a little bit more on the Pan-African side of it because it's a very interesting thing. You know what I'm saying? So, first comment is from Juan Rambo. Shout out to Juan, man. It was good. You know, shout out to him. He goes, great video. Try interviewing Kimberly Florida. She has a channel and was in a movie called The Heist. And also try interviewing Jenny on the Block. Listen, Jenny is not going to come on my podcast whatsoever. She didn't like the critique that I gave with her and Tariq Nasheed. Jenny blocked me. So it is what it is. She don't like me, so it is what it is. Kimberly, I'll try. I'll definitely start reaching out to other people for interviews, so I'll definitely try to do that. Now, got my brother Art Nustal TV, you know, Nustal TV. Remember, go check him out. You know, link down below to our interview. He said, I'm in California too. The way the guest is breaking down infrastructure is outdated. Ooh. HR and management is totally different today, is global than domestic. You hire your own, point blank. Okay, all right. So Pan-African, he got hit right now. So that should be a good back and forth. Hopefully, you know, he responds. You know what I'm saying? Now, the next person is On Huang. Says, in Miami, these franchise supermarkets called Presidente, that's Latin owned. Well, I commented, and hopefully, you know, it is actually Latin owned, but I commented and I was like, hopefully it's not Anglo-Hispanics that own it, because there's a big misconception when it comes to Latinos and Anglo-Hispanics. Very controversial, and I could care less. I'm gonna say what I gotta say, right? Anglo-Hispanic don't represent the Latin community because they have not done nothing for the Latin community. Just because we're Latino does not mean that everybody and everyone should be under this Latin banner just because we share the same culture. That doesn't mean that they see us the same. You know what I'm saying? It's like white Jamaicans and black Jamaicans. White Jamaicans don't see themselves the same as black Jamaicans, even though they share the same culture and they could probably talk, you know, the same language or whatever the case is. At the end of the day, they're gonna look out for the white Jamaicans. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Asian Dominicans are still Asian, but guess what? They're gonna look out for Asian things. They're gonna look out for Asian interests. So that's something that it's missed a lot of times, and I don't know why it's not really talked about, but I'm starting to see more and more things being talked about it, you know, now. But anyway, listen. I had a wonderful interview with this brother, Expose the Manosphere. He definitely broke a lot of things down. Shout out to him. And Expose the Manosphere, you could definitely catch him in his YouTube channel, link down below. But also Expose the Manosphere, you know what I'm saying? He stopped YouTubing because he found it like it was repetitive, but he was a very wonderful good interviewee, you know, and is a good interviewer, you know, because I got to know a little bit more about him and also a little bit more on just the Manosphere as a whole. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people like to put me into the whole Manosphere thing. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not no Manosphere, but I understand a lot of their points. But I also see the other side. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, this is interview with Expose the Manosphere. I hope you guys enjoy it. Yep. What up, my people? It's your boy Radical. You heard? So I always bring you guys special guests, and it isn't any different this time. And today with me, I got Expose the Manosphere. What's going on, bro?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How about you? NBA All-Star Weekend this weekend in Cleveland.
Yeah. I heard. Who you going for?
I don't care. I'm just going to one event because I can't afford $1,000 ticket for nosebleed seats.
Hey, listen, just enjoy it as much as you can. You know what I mean? That's all that matters. You know. But shout out to you, Expose. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. For the people who might not know who you are, tell the people a little bit about yourself. Or like, who are you?
Yeah, so my name is Aaron, and I am the creator of Expose the Manosphere, which originally was Exposing the Manosphere, but I had to abandon that channel because it almost got terminated. So I've been covering the Manosphere, particularly the Black Manosphere, since 2018 when I came across it inadvertently. And I started as a writer, so I've written about 4 or 5 articles. The most famous one is about the one that came out in Medium in 2020. And then, shortly after I made a blog, and then I created a YouTube channel to promote the blog, but that got time consuming, and I kind of enjoyed making videos, so I started making YouTube videos on the Manosphere as a way to like archive it, critique it, and just like to make parody videos, because there are plenty of things I find hilarious about the space.
Yeah. And when you stumbled upon this, right? What was your first thought when you stumbled upon this? Was it like, oh my God, I can't believe men are actually thinking this? Or were you thinking like, finally a place where I could call my own? Or or did you think, great, I am going to become one of their trolls? Like what was your initial like thought reaction towards it?
My initial reaction was like, man, this is kind of weird and extreme. So I didn't think much of it after that because I came across it through a documentary. And that was it, actually. It was only a month later that coincidentally the incel became mainstream from the Toronto van attack. And, I was looking at coverage of it, and I'm just like, man, why are people thinking all incels are white? Like if you talk to people, you'll find incels like all race and ethnicities, if you're being honest. So I sought to write an article about the Black incels, and I came across inadvertently the Black Manosphere. And like I said, at first I just found it entertaining. I didn't really think much of it. It was only gradually that I started seeing it as problematic the more I listened to the rhetoric.
Yeah, like when I got introduced to the Manosphere, I didn't know that's what it was called. I heard certain conversations within barbershops, certain same rhetoric and conversations in building hallways among guys, you know what I mean? But I've never heard anything along the lines of ideologies of the way women think and how they should be broken down and how it should be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was mostly what I've heard growing up in the Bronx. Mostly what I've heard was try not to get finessed, basically. If women are out here, either she's loyal or not trying to get finessed, or don't become a baby daddy statistic, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was never on that whole, well, she said this, so I have 37 other responses to go by because she cocked her hip through the west and it was 37 degrees out, you know what I mean? So it wasn't analytical like that. But then it started becoming more like I don't know, Donovan Sharp, womenese, understanding womenese, and all these other things. Now, what about that? Did you see that you started to actually dive deep and psychologically breaking it down? Because your videos are very, very well done, very well researched, and to be honest, they're like psychological, like like thesis papers, you know? And
Mhm.
I find it fascinating the way you break these things down. And I'm like, wait a minute. He has to have a psychological uh like background or something. Like how did you go about this?
Oh, so one thing I can say about myself, yeah, I'm finishing a PhD in history, so I'll be defending in May. Finally, I would have finished like a year ago, but there were issues with my committee that just delayed it. So yeah, I'm a trained academic, so it's only just natural that I'm going to approach it from an academic lens. Not saying I can't have fun time to time, but no, that's just how I'm trained. That's just how I approach subjects. Because it's really just an extension of like my freelance writing, which was always like intellectual and academic base. Whenever I approach any project, so I'm trying to remember the first part of your question about when I start seeing as problematic.
Yeah, when did you start seeing
Oh
it
yeah.
problematic and started to like evolve?
Well, the one issue I saw, I remember Donovan Sharp when I used to watch him a lot. That's why I kind of know his contradictions pretty well. Yeah, he made a video. It was called like "Educated Women Are Fraudulent," and it's actually one of the first videos I posted on my main channel. He just goes on this overtly like misogynistic, misinformed rant about there's no female pilots and women in college are just they're getting these useless degrees and they're doing drugs, or just having sex, and I'm just like, and there's other things too. He just pretty much I would say the summary of it is that women were just like intellectually and skill wise inferior to men. That's pretty much what he was saying. It was just like it was really off putting. I was kind of shocked how people and his listeners were responding to it. And like I said, the more I listened to it, the more I'm like, okay, yeah, there probably were problematic elements I didn't notice, like the whole Pookie and Ray Ray debate, which is really just an argument about sexual access and is pretty classist too. I mean, it's not really understanding structural issues for why people embrace those types of personas, and the fact that it's not like as people in the manosphere say, it's not contagious. Like you could put one person in jail and somebody just follows them up and can engage in the same criminal activity. So, and that's pretty much when I started seeing it as problematic. That it was very they generalized. It was very anti-black. I mean, it's conservative, which is fine, but I just think they just remind me of those like misinformed conservatives who read one book and
I
think they're
I did
expert on everything.
I found that very interesting when you said conservative because majority of the people who you know uh talk about the red pill, right? Who are on the red pill, majority of them are got conservative ties or
Mhm.
conservative views. Is there any correlations to that?
It's the anti-feminism stuff because the anti-feminism, even it's really like a catch-all term for anti-leftism. So, because if you're anti-feminist, and then it tends to extend into more like anti-liberal policies, anti-immigration. Because trust me, listen to the white guy; they would sound like borderline white nationalists.
Yeah, pretty much,
Anti,
pretty much.
yeah,
Yeah,
anti-Black Lives Matter, and racism is overblown, white supremacy is overblown. So yeah, it's just the anti-feminism because to be anti-feminism is definitely like illiberal at its core. Not to say you have to agree with everything about feminism, nobody does. But it just extends to other areas. So it's no shock that everybody like supports Trump, or like
yeah,
almost
yeah, yeah.
everybody in space supports Trump.
But do you do you see now? This is my question to you. Do you see how? Because I saw doing my research, I saw how the Manosphere somewhat started
Mhm.
and evolved into something extremely toxic. Can we agree to that?
Yeah, that happened to all online communities.
Well, yeah, and I found the same way it happened to the feminist community. How throughout the 60s it started off with one way, and then later on throughout time it started becoming very, very toxic. That's how I see it. So, would you see that like there might be a correlation to that or no? In your opinion?
It can be, but the thing is, like, manosphere is largely internet based, and feminism is definitely much more like richer in history of the ideology. Now, I don't agree with everything feminists say. You have different, you have black feminism, you got radical feminism, and like I don't agree with the feminist argument that sex doll somehow like promotes this whole like I forget what they
Grape,
say.
grape
Yeah, yeah,
culture,
like rape culture. I don't really
grape.
agree
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that. That was just like, okay, come on, it's a little too.
Yeah, I was a little lost when I heard that too. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, feminism at its core is all about the belief that men and women should be equal in
which I
terms of
agree
different
with.
facets of life.
What?
Yeah, most
Yeah,
people are feminists.
which I agree with, and that's not a problem. I find it a little bit of an issue when it evolves to the whole, I'll say, the Me Too movement, or when it evolves
Mhm.
to like believe all women. And we've seen certain cases of women clearly lying. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's when I see that there's an issue when it comes to that, to the real victims who actually did experience that. Kind of devalues their way of like being heard and actually getting justice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did. There's definitely is a trouble. It's troubling when anybody's an absolutist. Of course, to believe all women, the whole point of that was the fact that a lot of women don't come forward because it's automatically assumed that they won't be believed. I could definitely see people who are on the opposite side can say like, "Well, hey, you can't," because there is a real history of women, especially when you think of like racial lines of like lying about sexual assault and the fear of like being accused of like a false allegation. So I totally understand both sides on that fence.
Yeah. So what did you find wrong in that manosphere community? And by the way, would you be able to break down and define what the manosphere is, red pill, and this SYSBM and stuff like that? So would you be able to define it for the people that
Yeah,
might not know?
so the manosphere is a term, it's an umbrella term for a loosely affiliated, at times adversarial groups in the online space. So you have men rights activists that are largely focused on reforming the legal system, particularly about like divorce laws and child custody cases. And then you have the red pill, that whole ideology that the deck is stacked against men, and that this ideology will reveal the true nature of women. That women are, women can lie, women will cheat on you, and all this other very stuff. But it's really just this matrix analogy that tells people like take the red pill. This is you'll learn the truth about women versus the blue pill, and you'll just believe in this whole la la fantasy world. Then you have MGTOW, men going their own way. Those are men who pretty much they're not necessarily like done with women. They just refuse to marry or cohabitate with women. And of course, yeah, that's pretty much MGTOW in a nutshell. They'll still,
Really?
yeah, they do not marry. They won't cohabitate with a woman. They'll still sleep with them, but they do not have
Well, yeah,
anything to marry.
procreation is fine, right? But what? What?
Yeah, most of them are guys who like been divorced or had bitter divorce or bitter child custody disputes. Like Coach Greg
Okay.
Adams, he had like he has a video of his wife, and you could just tell that they just do not get along. Like both of them.
So I I'm not gonna say this person's name.
Hmm.
I have a personal friend of mine that is deep into the whole men going their own way, red pill type of stuff, right?
Hmm.
He's he sends me videos of people I don't even know about, right? I never even heard. Some people I did hear, some people I didn't hear. And he has this ideology about women. Basically, they're human forms of blood sucking succubus, in his opinion, right? About women, right? Which is completely toxic and completely left field, right? But he's never been married, and he had multiple relationships that ended in very tragic situations.
Mm.
So it's clear to see that he's taking those experiences and literally sprinkling it out to all women he's interacting with, which is a very negative way to look at life in general, you know?
Hmm.
Do you think, in your opinion, because this is how I see it, do you think that maybe these men got hurt so bad that in order to find healing, they're going into this toxic way of basically expressing themselves?
So there's a joke that the manosphere is nothing more but group therapy. I mean,
Okay.
but it's what's
Okay.
sad though when you do experience a low point in your life, the worst thing you can do is to go to an individual or to a group that's just going to validate your feelings rather than people who can assess it and tell you things that you might not want to hear. So it's probably better to see a therapist who you can talk to more on an intimate level and can give you better professional advice.
Why go to a therapist when I'm drinking my feelings away in the bar? Everybody knows me and understands me. Who cares, right?
Well, so the funny thing is there's nothing wrong with venting. Venting is perfectly fine. Some people do need to get something out of them. The problem with that is that you see people on this community, they've been venting for like 2+ years, 4 years.
Jesus
Yeah, that's when it
Christ.
gets problematic. When they were like, "Hey, I just want to, just vent," which I'm like, "Okay, well, why are you doing it for years?"
Isn't the whole point from venting is to find resolutions?
Yeah. So no, there's nothing wrong with venting and just venting like one time, but eventually you want to.
Yeah, that's my point where I'm going with this. Usually, you're supposed to find a resolution. You're talking about two. You just said 2-4 years. Where's the resolution in that?
I wish I had an answer. I've seen content creators who said they've seen people in this space for 5 years still leaving the same comments on similar videos that they saw them comment on like years ago.
Jesus Christ.
In all seriousness, I think a lot of people in the space are socially isolated, and this is a space where they actually have like some sort of like importance or some friendship that they lack in their actual lives. It's really bad to substitute internet relationship for actual
of course. And the thing is, I'm not gonna lie, some of what the people from the Manosphere and Red Pill people say, I do agree with some. Not everything. It's like basically eating the meat and spitting out the bones, I agree with some of it, but I think that they overshadow certain men's situations and experiences as this is exactly what's going to happen instead of being this might happen. For example, let me just give you an example. There was this case in Florida where a man married his high school sweetheart, right? 5-8 years later, they buy a house, have kids. 10 years later, the man, this guy finds out that his high school sweetheart, who is his wife at that time, is cheating on him with the personal trainer at their local gym. They get divorced. He gets kicked out, still paying for the house. The guy that she cheated on him with is living there, and he's right now living in a 1-bedroom apartment. That story in itself, horrific, but I don't see every guy going through that, It's a very hard thing, I understand, but I don't see every guy going through that. I don't see every marriage going down that route. But you will have some of these people in these communities who will overblow it and say, this is your end reaction, or this is the end result. You know what I mean? Which is, I don't believe is the case whatsoever. So for something like that, I understand where, let's say, marriage laws are very unfair against men, but also in the same time, it's not the same outcome that every man is going to have. What would you say to that?
In terms of some of the stories that they kind of pound?
The story they kind of regurgitate amongst each other, and basically these 1 or 2% cases they bump it up to this is what's really going to happen. You know what I mean?
That's a red pill in a nutshell. A lot of time it just harpers on too much negativity. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can definitely find statistically, after a divorce, women are worse off financially than men. That is just the case. That's just true across the board. However, you can definitely find the anecdotal examples of men who get screwed. I know one personally. I won't say his name or how I know him, but and not to mention there's also accountability in here. He started an affair. His phone went off. You can see a text message on the phone. His wife saw it, and I don't know what happened. She just erupted. The cops came, and then she lied to the cops that he was going to shoot up the school. He got kicked out the university. He still can't go back to this day. I know him personally, but I won't give say how I know him. Now, I could look at an example like that if I was in the manosphere. It's like, see, these women are going to lie to you, which his wife did. She did lie to the cops. However, it's like, well, okay, this whole situation started because of something of action he did by having an affair. Not saying I'm trying to excuse her action, but you know, a lot of time when people are going through these horrible incidents, they never talk about their side. Like, what did they
Yeah,
do?
yeah, like for example, that reaction would have never happened if he never did A. So
Mhm.
B would have never occurred. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But you know, it's really easy just to look at those examples to just try to scare men from women, which really the red pill, as a nutshell, kind of does that. Kind of scares men of getting into relationships or especially marrying women and not understanding the nuances of relationship. Because you're getting really dating advice from men who proven to not have successful marriages or not successful relationships, or sometimes never
Yeah.
have been married at all.
Yeah. I've seen, like, I've heard again some of their talking points on how to approach women. They have this like scientific way of looking at things, like code approach. You,
Oh, that debate, yeah,
and
that's
all,
something. It doesn't even make sense because they'll say choosing singles. I'm like, well, for one, not all guys can recognize them, and not all women know how to give them.
yeah, exactly. Like so I'm seeing these type of things, right? And I just find it interesting how, okay, you're showing men how to get court a woman, right? Get a woman, right? Okay, cool. Some of these men, I understand that they're in the age of just getting multiple notches on their belt. All they want to
Mhm,
do is have fun. I get it.
mhm.
Nothing wrong with that. I believe that there's a certain level that you're going to have to get to evolve. You're going to want to actually have a partner on the side that you guys are going to build with. That's how I see things. I want to have somebody on the side that I want to build with, build my empire with, and actually have a family. I think that's a normal way of seeing things, right?
It depends. Some people, I would never try to judge a guy or a woman
Yeah,
who just want to like, sleep around, like, all
of
human
course, of
beings.
course,
I
of
would just
course.
say
But if you're
be
still 60 years
responsible.
old, if you're still 60 years
Oh,
old, talking about you're going to the club. Come on, man. It's a little weird. It's a little
yeah,
weird.
my advice is just please be responsible because there's
Yeah,
plenty
yeah,
of people
yeah.
who unfortunately have unexpected kids or kids that they don't want, and
Yeah,
oh
that's
boy.
true.
But no, yeah, you're definitely right. Even people who do have that phase in life, I won't give anything about my personal life, but
Yeah.
eventually most people do want to have somebody who they can like, be, pit bond with,
Well,
still
yeah,
get the emotional
and
support.
that was my and that's what I want to steer to. Like, I don't see nothing being said or given about maintaining a relationship.
Mm-mm.
All I hear is how to get one and how ways to get over one, never to maintain one. Why you think that is?
Because a lot of guys in the space aren't successful in dating. In fact, a psychology major who he actually wanted to interview me, but we just never did it for whatever reason. He told me he's a follower. He's like, the red pill is really good for the short term, but it's not good for the long term. So yeah, you can definitely learn how to court a woman, how to sleep with a woman, or how to get over a relationship, but you can't learn how to maintain a relationship because there's nowhere you can go where somebody can tell you that because a lot of people in the space don't have experience in having long-term relationships or
Yeah,
marriages.
yeah, and so I wanna get into the first video I saw about you.
Mhm.
Um, you had me in it.
Oh, I know what
you
you're
had
talking about. Yeah, yeah,
you,
yeah.
you had me in it. At first, I'm not gonna lie. At first, I was like, "Hey, yo, who is this dude? I don't like him. Screw this guy down. Thumb down, thumb down, thumb down." But the more I saw your videos, the more I started to become a fan.
Mhm,
The more I started to actually see your side and agree with you with a lot of things,
mhm.
right? And I still feel not salty, but I feel like it was a little unfair to have my little just small clip because I'm not part of that community whatsoever. I
Mhm.
had a few people reach out to me. Yo, I didn't know you were red pill. I'm like, what? I'm not. I'm not a red pill. So I understand why you did that, and kudos to you, right? But I do believe, and I do see a small part, which you gave your opinion on that about American culture, right?
Mhm.
I feel, and I personally do see this, and I speak to my wifey about this all the time, that American culture now, the modern day American culture, has basically toxicified relationships nowadays because
Hmm.
everything is right now is superficial and what do you have so I could benefit for instead of actually cohabitating with two people and actually sharing resources instead of just being me, you know. um do you see my point? Do you still disagree with it?
I can see your point. It's just hard for me to, as a historian, just really hard for me to analyze a contemporary moment because I'm like, yeah, I do agree that we do live in this, society where it's like meism, me. I do think it's kind of weird because one thing I hear in the manosphere where guys be like, yeah, I don't want to get in a relationship until I work on myself, and nobody ever has any definition of what that means. It's like the point of a relationship is to build with one another, not to like be fully established and then meet somebody. Then I mean, you should definitely be it's mutual support actually. But that's something more older people will tell you. I don't know about young people today.
Yeah. No, because I've when I was single for like 4 years and a half, I was out here in the dating market, doing my thing. You know what I'm saying? Doing my thing. But my main goal was to be in a relationship. The multiple women that I encountered, all they wanted to do was just mess around.
Mhm.
Nobody wanted to be in a committed relationship. They saw me somewhat as old fashioned, and they were like, commitment? Let's go to this bar. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I found again I had to like basically adapt and go like, okay, well, I'm not gonna take this shorty serious. It is what it is, you know. So that's how I started to move. And not gonna lie, I kind of got a little jaded, and I started to go like, I gotta become a high value man. I got a little jaded because I was like, wait a minute now, wait a minute. These women don't want nothing serious, so why should I take her serious? You know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you
And
mean. Yeah.
but I also did come across a lot of women who were on my mindset. And
Hmm.
when I did come across them, I was already somewhat like, nah, I already experienced some of these other women, so you're just fooling me. In reality, they weren't, and I kind of messed that up, and I could
Mm.
admit that. So don't you think that's somewhat like how it goes? You know what I'm saying?
For some people, I imagine I'm kind of happy they took accountability on that. I know you do live in New York. I know
Of
people in
course.
New York tend to wait compared to other parts of the country. They tend to
Yeah,
settle down later.
yeah.
Sure, but I live in Nebraska. I met people who are like 21 and divorced. I'm like, what?
What?
I'm not lying. Yeah, I'm like 21. I'm divorced. I'm like, bro, how's that possible? But
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
So no, I could definitely see that. That's been true for me. I mean, I think people who I used to be really serious in the beginning, but other people that were career driven. And then, there's people I talked to where it was just strictly casual and it was never no opportunity whatsoever for like a commitment, which was okay with me, but at the same time it get like frustrating that after a certain point. So no, I could definitely see that for some people. It's a different trajectory for some. I don't want to like universalize anybody's dating experience because I have friends that got married at like 23 and are still married. Yeah, I went to
Yeah.
school in the South and I graduated from high school in the South and college. And whoo, man, they got married right after college. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. I admitted to to my wrongdoing. I understood where I messed up at, and I learned from it. I think part of relationships when you get out of one is learning your mistakes. It always takes two. Two people is always at fault. I never believed and never saw the it was never my fault type of talking point. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It was never my fault. I did nothing wrong. And if you actually had a machine to go back in time, you actually would see like they weren't paying them any attention. They were like ghosting them and stuff like that. So then you could probably pinpoint with like, oh no, you did stuff wrong here and here and here, right? So I totally understand that, but let me ask you, do you think that toxic masculinity is a real thing?
Yes. The thing is, I think a lot of people don't understand what people mean when they say that. They just think, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do think there is definitely an issue in American society where we try to demonize almost anything that's masculine, which I don't like, because masculinity inherently isn't bad. What they mean by toxic masculinity is, I'll give you an example. Okay, one thing that's toxic is that men are publicly shamed for expressing emotions except for anger. So, like, men cannot express sadness because they just seen as like a wimp. So that's pretty much one example of toxic masculinity. It's no shock that a lot of men increasingly, and it's been documented by various social scientists, are middle-aged men are pretty lonely and don't have any close male friends. And some of that too, because when men get together, unlike women do like share deeply personal stuff with one another. Men just keep it very informal. And that is like a characteristic of
I'm
masculinity.
not gonna
That is,
lie. I'm not gonna lie. That is true.
yes. Women will, I
That
kid you
is
not,
true.
women will, like, be really close to another physically. I kid you not, in college, I would see two guys on a bench and they'll be on different benches that are like feet apart. I'm
Yeah,
like, what?
yeah. No, that is true. I think, was it one time, it might have been my toxic masculinity. I don't know. But one time, like, my boy went through a breakup and he was about to cry, and I was like, hey yo, that's mad gay. That's all I said. And because I said that, he saw that as like, oh no, that's weakness. Let me
Mhm.
not cry and hold my feelings in. You know what I mean? And looking back at it now, I'm like, oh my god, I think I just created a monster. Like, like looking back at it, this
Yeah.
dude has probably never cried a single tear in his life. And his wife is probably like, how come you don't talk to me anymore? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's kind of sad. I can understand it's an emotion that makes people feel uncomfortable, but it
yeah.
isn't. It's a important emotion because sometimes you really have to let things
But
out.
doesn't society kind of drive that though? Like,
Yeah, I think
so,
overall, yeah.
yeah, because it does come, that pressure does come from men and also from women. I've
Hmm.
heard some women say, I don't want no weak man, and they will list, and crying will be part of that list,
Oh,
of being weak. So that's why I'm like, it kind of enforces that, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, it's like the film Inside Out. I know you probably the Pixar film.
Yeah,
How happiness suppresses sadness, even though it's like, that's an emotion that's important because
yeah,
happy memories can definitely become sad memories because you mourn them. And that's
yeah,
pretty much, that was really the like tension between that film. Like,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
character just
yeah.
didn't really get. I don't know why I'm talking about Disney, but it just came
No,
up to me.
no, 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 no. It's all good. It's all good. I found that to be a documentary of my life. Instead, no, no, I'm like no, no. So, but now let me ask you about toxic femininity. Do
Mhm.
you believe that that's a thing?
I haven't really heard that term outside of Manosphere,
What
so I
were you
don't know
doing it
exactly
here
what it
now?
is.
Now screw all that. Now you're learning it. No, but do you, no, for real? Do you think that it's a thing that could be possible?
I gotta know what it is because I don't know what it is. Like,
Okay, so let's say, okay, for toxic masculinity is overexerting their masculine,
mhm.
traits in a negative way. So I would say toxic femininity would go into the realms of using the femininity in a negative way to harm men. For example, uh faking a pregnancy or lying that the kid is yours when it's not.
Is that toxic femininity or that just lying and being duplicitous?
I'll probably say that will be probably toxic femininity,
I don't know. It seems like toxic femininity is something that people came up with in response to toxic masculinity.
yeah,
Toxic masculinity. That just, to me, that's just lying and being deceive. Now, it's true
true.
societal wise. Society is more likely to believe women too. I don't know. They're more sympathetic with women, and will believe them quicker than they will believe a men. But no, that's just lying and being duplicitous. And
Got it.
some women are good at it because they know society wise,
That,
people lie
that,
with women on that front.
that is true. I would agree with you with that. Now, now this is something that I heard from Fresh and Fit, and we're gonna get into them in a minute. I heard this about Fresh and Fit, and I really didn't believe it. And to be honest with you, I didn't even do the research on it. So this is the reason why I'm asking you, because maybe you would know. But what are your thoughts on divorce rates being more higher with women engaging the divorces than men?
Oh, that's easy. So correlation isn't causation. So because women file around 70% of the divorce, that doesn't mean that like it was the woman's sole decision. I mean, couples can definitely come to an agreement, and the woman's the one that filed it. But most women do it is because they often don't feel as supportive in a relationship, or like the communication is kind of like weak. What's weird to me, the manosphere, instead of like telling men how to have healthier marriages, they just complain about it, say don't get married.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I think it's a little, I'm gonna say it's a little childish,
Hmm.
to just say, you know, get away from something like that, instead of saying, okay, well, these are ways to, the same ways how they scientifically break down women and how to get them, they should scientifically break down how to maintain one. I wouldn't think it's that hard. I think isn't what some of them married?
Some manosphere guys, yeah, some manosphere guys are married.
Yeah, so you know, isn't that a whole, isn't that a whole hit to their whole thing? Like it's like contradictory, right?
Well, like people like Donovan Sharp, he lied about being married and even lied about his wife's age because he always said that she was like in her early 30s, and it turns out she was like in her mid 40s, which is older than him.
Wow.
Yeah. And he admitted to lying, but said it shouldn't
Wow.
matter anyway. I'm just like,
Wow.
yeah, I know he was married. I know Steve the Dean is married. Lucario is married, even though he's admittedly in an
Was
open
it was isn't
relationship.
Rolo Tomasi also married?
Yeah, he's married and has a daughter. Yep.
Exactly. So why do you think these men aren't speaking on that? Do you think that they're just drilling down on their niche?
They got to do what sells. The manosphere at the end of the day is still like a lucrative business. I don't think it's that
Really?
lucrative. Oh yeah, I made videos on like the monetization of the red pill as well as like the courses. But if you think of somebody like Robo Tomasi, he does make an income through his book sales as well as his YouTube channel, which people donate to him. And 21 Studios, they make a lot of their money from their YouTube channel, but it got demonetized, and also conferences. And at the conferences, they sell T-shirts, books, soap, Alpha soap. They sell various
Alpha
merchandise.
soap.
Yeah, they sell
Wow.
various
Okay.
merchandises and things. So, no, this people are making a full-time living off the content, and that's
I was
definitely.
not aware.
Oh yeah, when I made the channel, I wanted to look at the red pill from various like avenues. I didn't want to just go on the talking points. I'm like, no, also want to look at like the financial aspect of it because I don't think that's talked about enough.
Yeah, so now let me ask you, because this whole thing is the whole red pill and stuff like that. They're not mainstream, right?
No.
They're very, very underground. But do you see them going to that avenue?
Eventually, because eventually it's pretty big and has grown since I came across the space, and I have talked to academics behind the scenes who are actually writing about this. So inevitably, it's going to get so big that you're going to see it covered in some mainstream publication. It already has received that kind of attention, but I don't think the impact wasn't all that significant. CNN did something on the red pill a few years ago. Anthony Dream Johnson appeared on Good Morning Britain, and his conference was spoken about on Real Talk, that talk show. But no, I could definitely see NBC, ABC, doing something on it. Even John Oliver, because I'm like, it's going to become so big that you just can't ignore it. It gets too many views, it makes too much money, and it's on a highly traffic website. So I think when it hits,
Right.
it's going to be devastating because there's just too
Now,
much dirt on
now let
people's
me now
site.
let me ask you about these two individuals. Well, three individuals: Fresh and Fit and Kevin Samuels. Would you consider these two platforms being part of the red pill, or is one part of the red pill and the other one's not? Are they Manosphere people? What are your
So
thoughts?
Fresh and Fit are definitely more red pill manosphere than Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels from the Black Manosphere. Oh boy, how would I define it? It's Um, it's where he uses red pill terminology on his channel, but I will say most of his subscribers probably have no idea what the manosphere or red pill is. Because he
Gotcha.
marketed himself as a dating coach or a dating
Gotcha.
advice guru. But yeah, I
No,
don't think the followers know about this stuff.
gotcha. Now I see. I'll get into Fresh and Fit in a minute, but I see Kevin Samuels as marketable. I do see
Mhm.
Kevin Samuels as someone who can go mainstream, the ability to go mainstream, and the ability to have his ideologies very digestible and understandable for daytime talk shows.
Yeah,
Now,
even though it'll be controversial, but yeah, I can see
it will be very, very controversial. Of course, it'll be very controversial. Like, look at Wendy Williams, controversial figure in daytime talk show. Charlemagne, the same thing.
Howard
Very
Stern.
Howard Stern. So the list could go on, and I see him as someone that will go mainstream, not even soon or pretty soon, due to the fact that he was in a Future music video, and some of these people are already having some of these talks in mainstream media. So I do see Kevin Samuels going there because, to be honest, he is the safe one. I'm gonna be honest.
He's polished.
Kevin Samuels is safe and polished, and he is someone that isn't bogged down to this toxicity. One, two, he's very, very corporate, and three, he knows how to engage with people when people are pushing back. He isn't irate. He doesn't go off the cuff like some of these other people who blow up on live streams. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And for some reason they do 8-hour live streams, and those 3 hours is just about that one person that made them go crazy. So he isn't that type of person. He is extremely, extremely professional. So
Hmm.
I do see him as safe.
However, if he does go mainstream, and I can see him getting bigger, because Nicki Minaj and all this other stuff. People are going to dig into his background, and people have already done that, and they're going to see how much he has, falsified his background.
Yeah, I haven't heard nothing about. I don't know. Can you enlighten it? Like, what do you
Oh
mean?
yeah, so there's plenty of videos on some of the one channel I promoted called Red Pill Examined, where for years he had to claim that he went to the University of Oklahoma and received a bachelor's in chemical engineering, and he actually would say that he's like, yeah, I got a degree from there, but then it turned out that he dropped out.
Isn't chemical engineering? Don't you got to do like 8 years on that?
No, well, a bachelor's? No, it's just a bachelor's,
Oh,
just
oh, bachelor's. I'm
regular
sorry. That's
4
four. That's
years.
four. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
normally you either will go to grad school or you get like a job where you can get
That's a weird.
training.
That's a weird thing to say.
To lie
Chemical
about
engineering.
graduating.
Yeah. Out of all things, a major like that. That's a little. You could have just said liberal arts. Why
No, he
not?
didn't graduate at all, though.
Oh, but even if you're going to lie, why chemical engineering? That's not
Oh
something.
no, he was a chemical engineering major.
Oh, okay, got it.
He just lied about receiving the degree. And
Gotcha.
dropping
Okay,
out.
okay. Because I thought you were saying that he was just lying about. And I'm
Oh,
like,
by the way,
that's
I
a
have a degree in
weird major to lie about. Like,
my history is a liberal arts degree. So I'm like, hey,
yeah,
that's
no,
okay.
no, 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 no. Not trying to come at you. No. I'm just saying, like, an easier thing would have been like liberal arts, or an
Mhm.
easier thing was like, oh yeah, I got a bachelor's in English. You know what I mean? Something so like common, not like I got a bachelor in nuclear physics, and
Yeah,
like
but you can actually verify whether somebody graduated, regardless of the
that
degree
is
they got
true.
or not. And now there was that. There was also videos of him going. So he used to do cologne and men's fashion. So there's videos of him buying cologne and go and reviewing it and then going back to the store to return it.
Uh,
And the people who were in the
you
store,
serious?
they recognized his face so much that they actually talked about him on a live stream before he even blew up. There's if you go to poor men, poor black men, vegetables and junk food, he has videos on this, and it's freaking hilarious.
Wow.
So that's
So
why I'm like, he go mainstream, but
yeah,
people are
yeah,
going to
yeah,
find
yeah,
out he has faked it till he
yeah,
making it, as people would say.
yeah. Hey, listen. If Dr. Oz could make it, hey, whatever. let's talk about Fresh and Fit for a second.
Okay.
I see them as the very rough part of this of what the people we're talking about,
Like
right?
Jerry Springer.
Very rough, very not even polished. Some of the talking points I'm hearing it comes straight from a book.
Rational male. Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like these individuals got basically got fame quick, and they're trying to juggle it now, you know. Literally it's almost every other day they got headlines coming in, right? So I know for a fact they're nowhere near going to go mainstream whatsoever, but they are going to have that niche within the underground, which is going to make them big. You know what I mean? Trust me, I see it, you know. So in your opinion, what is going to, in your opinion, right? What is going to keep them going? And also, if you think they're going to get canceled, what do you think is going to cancel them?
So what's going to keep them going is the content that they're making now. You probably saw the whole recent clip with Tommy Sotomayor.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, they started in 2020. They blew up pretty quickly. So they used to appear on Solo TV's channel, and they were just talking. Eventually, I saw them create a podcast, and they kind of blew up mostly because of a TikTok controversy. Something Myron Gaines said, and the Real Talk caught it and made a video about it, and they actually jumped in subscribers. They collaborated with a lot of big YouTubers early on, especially being in Miami, which made it easier. And then once they started bringing women onto the channel, that's when they just blew up. And if you notice, like their videos when they have women gets the most view compared to just them two.
I found that interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Listen, I'm not saying that I am a Fresh and Fit hater, but I'm not saying I'm a fan. I do see some of their content, and some of it is educational, like some of the Money Mondays and stuff like that is educational. I'm not gonna lie, but we have to call a spade a spade. Their most viewed content is just when they bring in girls, and this is my opinion on it. It's extremely I'm gonna say I'm gonna say it's like an echo chamber, because they're only bringing one type of female, and they're not bringing in different type of females. Their argument is, well, we'll bring in thousands of females from all over the country. We're not talking about all over the country. We're talking about the certain lifestyle and a certain mentality. It's only one. And that type of female is the attention-seeking female who is doing whatever at night and doing whatever on her phone to get money or whatever the case is. And those type of females do not represent the whole female dynamic or community. So the fact that they say, well, we're bringing these females, see what they're saying, it's kind of like watering down every other female who might listen to that. You know what I'm saying? So in your opinion, why do you think they want to constantly bring that type of female into that content? In order, do you think it's to prove themselves right, or what?
I'm going to answer that question. Let me get back to why I think it might collapse.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go,
I'll
go
get
ahead.
to that question. I said if I think if it's collapsed, I think it'll be because of Myron Gaines. Myron Gaines is obviously the brains behind the whole operations, but as a person, he comes across as very hot-headed, as somebody who disrespects a lot of his co-workers. Like if you see clips of him, there's clips of him calling him stupid. Fresh is obviously a follower. He almost like mimics Fit. I mean, Fresh seems like a pretty cool guy, but I think he just follows the wrong crowd, honestly. So no, I think in all the controversies they've been in for being such a young channel, I think eventually it's just gonna implode on itself one day. Now, in terms of why they bring the woman on, it's pretty obviously, admittedly, both of them have admitted to, Fit has admitted to not being good with women when he was young. Fresh claims to have slept with 1,000 women, which everybody thinks is BS. Yeah, nobody.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he has said that. You know, he creates some. He has some of the weirdest stories. You know, the story
He
about the
said
NBA
that
player.
the one story that I saw was about DMing women, 100 women or something like that,
Yeah.
and the way he said the story sounded like complete BS.
Oh, you didn't hear a story about the NBA player?
That one, that's the one that I'm talking about. That
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
it,
was
it
yeah.
sounded fabricated as hell. It didn't sound real. I'm like, wait a minute. Even when he's saying it, he's like, so I was there and I was gonna do her, and I'm like, what? Who talks like that? So I'm like, and then on top of that, he supposedly had 3 women, right? 3 women, but yet he's calling it a threesome. Dude, it's a threesome if you're not there. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't
Man.
make sense. It didn't make sense. But go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, so what else? Oh yeah, so I don't believe that. I mean, I just obviously lie. But no, I think the reason they do it is because it's. I mean, if you watch the show, you can kind of tell that they weren't accustomed to being around that many women who even like were that attractive, at least on their standards. So I think a lot of the time they do it as like vindictiveness. They kind of get back on the women that rejected them while growing up. Because, like I said, they admitted to just not, you know, they're late bloomers. Fit was a gamer, and I used to be a gamer too, but I stopped doing that in high school. But yeah, I know gamers, so so yeah. I mean, like I just think it's more just like just revenge fantasy that they're on. Because most people have said that Myra, I don't say most people, some people have said that Myra Gaines is pretty misogynistic, that he just has a
Really?
disdain for a woman.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just from his upbringing, just being rejected. Because he's from Sudan. He grew up in some small town in Connecticut, like New Britain, Connecticut, or something. He said growing up, the kids would call him like a terrorist because he's, yeah.
Okay.
That's why he joined Homeland Security. That's why he joined
Oh,
the
okay.
Department of Homeland Security, actually, to kind of,
Okay.
go against those stereotypes that he heard growing up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
He put himself in a token position.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, we're the same age. Well, he's a year older than me, so I kind of
Yeah.
know the environment he grew up in. But
So he's like, I'm gonna show these people I'm not that brownie, and then he just like
yeah,
started going like, all
and the
right.
whole bringing women on, it's kind of obvious that he did. I mean, there was reports like when he had that whole scandal of allegedly impregnated somebody. They kind of go over like how
Well,
sex is just so bad.
So okay, so I was fully aware of some of their scandals and stuff like that, and I was fully aware on some of their escapades, if you would say. One thing that I do find very, very, very interesting is what they preach and who they are. Who they are completely don't align with each other.
Never has.
You have one individual who's extremely militant on his relationship goals, extremely militant on how he views women, but yet messages women to sleep with him in order to get on the podcast, or uses the podcast to lure women in bed, right? Again, I didn't know that was a strategy in one of their ideologies. I didn't know that, hey, build a business and also use that to sexually harass your own, didn't know that was a strategy. That's one. And two, you have another individual who's calm, cool, and collected, who doesn't agree with everything Myron does, but has his own goals, but agrees on the nature of women. But he also says that the sugar baby that he got is different.
That was embarrassing.
That is different, and and she isn't tainted, but yet on her own site. Listen, it writes itself, right? It writes itself, and it's very sad to see that because of these hypocrisies, their life changes based on what they get exposed from, and then they come up with lies to basically make up those types. So what do you? Obviously, they don't practice what they preach, but why do you think their followers decide to ignore that type of thing?
A code of personality. I think also they're not as well. Oh my goodness! So they made that. When they made that 3-hour live stream on responding to all the
Yeah.
things. There was one part where Myron Gaines was like, "Yeah, I couldn't got her pregnant, guy, because I pulled out," and everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah." It's like, dude, do you know
That
anything about
doesn't
sex
work.
ed?
It doesn't work like that.
And I kind of knew. That's when I saw that.
I got 5 friends that could tell you right now that doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I was like, not only that, I'm like, man, this dude doesn't know anything about sex ed, but at the same time, I'm like, man, his followers, they have like cult-like status. And that's what YouTube is. A lot of it, people, when people come to a channel, they are attracted to the personality. But I think some of their fans are young and have become so attached to them and living vicariously through them that there's almost nothing they could do that could like waver their support.
I think that female exposed some of the text messages. I saw some of his followers kind of attacking her and stuff like that, and I found this is what I saw from their point of view, and this is where I disagree with. It was totally fine to go after certain people until the people you went after actually held you accountable, but not only them, but your own fans held you accountable. And that's when you started backpedaling. Tells me you don't believe what you say. Tells me in the act of adversity and in the pressure, you will crumble and you will go based on what the status quo is. And to me, that isn't anything to cheer or be happy for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need principles at the end of the day.
Exactly. Regardless, I'm going to give, let's say, Trump, right? And this is a poor example. But the man will say one thing and stick to his guns regardless of how wrong he is. He will say China, and he will just go out and say, it is what it is, this is what happened, blah, 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 right? Regardless of how wrong he is, regardless how many times you disprove him, he will stick to his guns. When sometimes. It came to sometimes, yeah. But when it came to that situation, they started losing subscribers to the point where it was drastic.
Not 40,000.
Exactly. It was drastic. And then they backpedaled, apologies, 5-hour things, let's discuss this and all this other stuff. Oh, and then they go like, well, we're not going to talk about nobody else. No, like, no. It's one way or another. And the thing about that also is, it seems like they're so thin-skinned. It's like you can't get criticized. You can't take something as a criticism or as a joke or something like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna just give you myself an example. I'm not nowhere near them, but yet there's a lot of videos about me out there talking about I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a race baiter and all this other.
Nonsense. Yeah, I've seen that. So some of them are like really. Some of them come from like really anti-black individuals. I be listening like, oh,
exactly. So some of them are anti-black individuals. Some of them are actually pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. Some of them are pretty funny. And some of them just doesn't make sense because you're not attacking my message. You're just attacking me as a person, right? So it's just really weird, right? But just because of that one thing, I'm not just going to backpedal. I'm going to give you another example. The majority of my audience is pretty pro-black, right? Okay, cool. I made a video about Professor Black Truth on some of the things I disagree with him about. Literally, I lost 100 subscribers because of that. I did not backpedal, nor did I actually give an apology. I stuck to my guns and I said, it is what it is. This is my opinion. I'm not going to bend because certain people don't like it. And it seems like it's a little weird, like certain people are above criticism. Like,
it happened to me recently when I made a community post on a Discord chat room with divestors who freely use the N-word with the hard ER. And they were just like pissed and trying to defend them. Like, you can't defend the stuff I post. This looks like Stormfront. And it was just amazing to me how they were trying to justify it. But I stuck to my guns. I didn't lose subscribers. I think I might have lost a few, but I actually gained more than I lost.
So I wanna talk about divestors, right?
Okay.
I never knew nothing about the divestment community until like later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just I wasn't taken back, I was just confused. Right? I was just very confused, and I was like, what? Why? So I understand divesting from the Black community. I totally get it. If you want to do your own thing, cool. I don't care. But my thing is, don't big up another community thinking that it's all perfect when we have our same issues also, right? So for example, I had this conversation with this Black lady, and she flat out told me, I hate Black men and all this other stuff. That's why I date Latinos, because you guys won't kill us. You guys won't do this and this. And I was like, that's interesting, because Latinas are complaining about us doing the same thing to them. And she's like, what do you mean? And I showed her an article about femicide in the Latin community. And she's like, you just defending Black men. I'm like, no, I'm telling you that you sound exactly why some of the Latin women are leaving us for Black men, which I could care less about. But they literally say, and we can all play the Sin Santana clip. She even said it herself. Latin men are more machista than Black men, and Black men know how to take care of us. This is what she said. This is what she said. And this is not something new. So I've always found it very interesting that certain people will criticize the gender, the small gender of their community, and go to another community thinking it won't happen when it actually happens. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. It really annoys me because, we said before the live, before we started, like, I grew up in a diverse community. So I know crappy men and crappy women of all races and ethnicities. But no, I think a lot of that just deals with the lack of exposure that people have to other groups. Because, okay, if you want to talk about approaching, I think that's more social class than race, actually, in terms of how somebody reacts to being a cold approach. But if you talk about dating, it's all the same. I've dated Black, white, and Asian women, and I never noticed a difference. But now people in this space, I think a lot of them just don't have much exposure to other groups, so they just kind of put them on a pedestal or romanticize them simply because they're not the same race or ethnicity as them. So yeah, I know it's like in the Black sector, a lot of people buy into Black exceptionalism, which really always annoys me because just makes it seem like, Black people have these issues that are just unique to them that no other group experience, or if they do, it's not the same rate, which I'm like, no, that's not that different. And what's amazing too is like, there's some divestors who will say, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. But then they'll complain about how their white boyfriend or husband's parents don't like them because they're Black.
I remember I had this conversation with this Black dude say, well, this is the reason why I date Latinas is because they don't have attitude problems. I'm like,
that's a stereotype of Latinos, though.
I said, did you argue with one? Because she will curse you out in 2 languages.
Yeah,
and
have you ever
Go ahead.
Heard of some battle rapper who was like, I forget what the line was. He was like, I'll get my head and snap it like angry Puerto Rican bras. I was like, oh.
Yeah. No, but it's have we not seen Love and Hip Hop? You know what I'm saying? Like Erica Mena, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on. And it's a little weird that Black women get this attitude stereotype. And I'm looking at some of the women in my community applauding that. Yeah, Black women do got, this and this and this. And I'm looking at them. I'm like, you do it too. What are you talking about?
That's a stereotype of like both groups, actually. That's why I don't really get people say that.
That's something I never understood, but I always pointed out. I'm like, Maria, you do it too. You know what I'm saying? Like chill out, and The thing is, why again? Why do you think one stereotypes get pinned on a group of women who's in a certain race group than the other one, when in reality none of it's true?
So why one stereotype get pinned on one group and not the other?
Yeah.
I don't know. So pop culture, like pop culture, black women are portrayed as like this superhero or superwoman, you should say, which is really always devastating. It just make it seem like black women can just take on all these burdens and don't have any issues of their own to like alleviate from them. So I think pop culture tends to export that stereotype more than from Latinos. Not saying I haven't seen that in pop culture, but I think when people think about the whole attitude thing, they're more likely to associate it with black women. But some guys might see that as like being strong and assertive. So sometimes it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
But I know I grew up like growing around Puerto Ricans. I'm like, people say that stuff about black women. I'm so bad. Like, bro, you ain't seen nothing. Trust me.
Exactly. Talking about, you want to talk about loud? Listen. No, so we're gonna start wrapping it up. Let me I'm gonna give you a couple of more questions and we'll start wrapping it up, and and all that. So have you seen the Netflix documentary, the Tinder Swindler?
Heard of it, but haven't seen it.
Oh, let me give you just some of the cliff notes. This dude, amazing on Tinder, getting matches from left and right all over the world, and this guy matches with accomplished women who are financially stable, right? And he swindles them out of hundreds of thousands of dollars and pretty much basically ghosts them, after whatever. And he does it very tactfully and artfully to the point where these women, think that it's a desperate attempt in order to help him out with cash. And then he pretty much exits the picture and then bye-bye, and leaves them with $500,000 in debt, right? What I see both ways. I see this man being celebrated, but also I see this man being demonized. Now, just by hearing the cliff notes, what are your thoughts on that?
My first thought, honestly, is I thought that's something only women could do. Like, that joke that women say, like, you want to see me make $100 real quick, and they'll just go on Tinder. And there was a news article, a woman got kicked off of Tinder for doing that. I can see why. So I can definitely see, of course, like the women definitely were like exploited by if he intentionally was doing that. I can see people see him as a hero because they might just be bitter about dating apps, which are not the best thing to be on. So they might just sympathize with him a little bit more, empathize with him a little bit more.
Yeah, and the thing, I made a video about this a couple of hours ago, but I don't see what he did. I don't see that as anything wrong because, like you just said previously, I've seen women do this 100 times. I literally seen women do this 100 times and bragging about it. So I don't see this as a big issue, but apparently certain women do see it as a big issue. I'm sorry for that. You know what I'm saying? But that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree?
I can see both sides. Like, I have to watch the documentary first. I have Netflix, but I just don't watch TV often. So I have a much stronger opinion if I see the documentary. But like I said, I can see why people can see it both ways. I mean, we're all adults, so I think people have to be accountable for their actions at the same time.
Gotcha. Let me ask you. So tell me about some of the articles that you were interviewed for. How was that like, and what did they interview you about?
Oh, you mean just like writing stuff? The right stuff I've been writing
Yeah,
about?
because
So
I know you wrote something about the red pill and it kind of went viral and stuff.
Yeah, so I was interviewed for the L article. She actually interviewed me so she can learn who to talk to because she didn't really know anything about the Manosphere. She just went on that date, and I don't know who goes on a date and talks about that. And she was just confused, and somebody on Twitter told her about my article, and she contacted me. So I helped her out with that. But even though I've been writing about the documenting the Manosphere, I've been interviewed about my academic research on high school student activism in the Atlantic. I was interviewed about an interactive map I made on Latino urban rebellions from the 60s to the present day for City Lab, as well as I've been interviewed on PBS NewsHour and BuzzFeed about like police brutality in Latino communities because I've actually written about that. But I wrote about that because I wanted to like, spotlight pretty much a hidden spot in a lot of people's analysis about police brutality and why some communities allegedly don't care, but in fact, like, no, they do. And I grew up in a community where police harassment was a reality of our lives.
And this is the last question that I wanted to segue with you on that, what you just said. You talk about and you write articles on these things that happen within Black and Latin communities. What made you get into that, and what made you want to start writing these type of articles?
Oh, so it's a two-parter. So the first part is where I grew up. Like I said, I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and it's a majority Latino community now. It became majority minority in 2010, and 2020 it surpassed. And so I grew up in Bethlehem, Allentown, Pennsylvania, in predominantly Puerto Rican and Dominican working class communities, and there were some other groups too, but they were just pretty scattered. So that's the main reason. And the other reason is I started traveling in grad school, and I went up to Chicago. And unbeknowingly, I was sitting at a pizza restaurant. There was this one like Latino dude. I don't know, was he Mexican or Puerto Rican? He was just like pissed. I don't know what happened. He was just looking at me like pissed. And he was with two other women, and he was just pointing at me, talking about me. I was like, what the heck? However, what I didn't know is that I arrived to Chicago shortly after their mayoral election when Chuy Garcia lost to Rahm Emanuel. And at election, there was a lot of fear mongering where Black people mostly backed Rahm Emanuel, even though he closed down a lot of schools in Black and Latino neighborhoods. And so, and it really created this there was no wrong. I'm not saying Black and Latinos in Chicago almost never gotten along. It just made it worse. And I didn't know. I just arrived a few days after that.
Yeah. So you just represented something that he was like, look at this fucker.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So and from there, I was just puzzled. I was like, I've never experienced that type of animosity before. And it made me wonder, it's like, okay, well, what made my community that I grew up in so different from Chicago? And that's pretty much how I got interested in Black Latino relations. And when, as an academic, you surveyed the scholarship, and I kind of realized a lot of it was slanted. When I looked at Black Latino relationships, either it focused strictly on Los Angeles, which I didn't get, or it looked at communities where like Latinos were just new immigrants, so like somewhere like North Carolina. I was like, okay, why aren't there like, why isn't DC or New York, Philly in here where I grew up at? So that's what got me interested in when the whole when Black Lives Matter started, and there was articles on like, Latinos are also disproportionately killed, but why is there media coverage? And I wrote an op-ed. I don't like the title because the title is like Stop Ignoring the Police Killings of Latinos, but the argument was really Latinos, police brutality, and historical amnesia. And I was arguing that, there is actually a history and a well-documented history of Latinos politically organizing against police brutality, as well as engaging in urban riots against police harassment and killings. But it's a history that's just not really well known because it doesn't fit well into our Black-white understanding of race. And yeah, from there on, I just, I got, it just builds onto itself, and I got interested. And yeah, later eventually led me to make a map on the urban rebellions that occurred in mostly Puerto Rican communities, and that's where it occurred the most, but also in Mexican American communities, and to a small extent, Dominican and Salvadorian. So the Mount Pleasant riots in DC and the Salvadorian community in 1991 was one of them.
So with that being said, why do you think certain Black activists or Black political figures say that or ignore the Latino contribution to some of these activists and racial, improvements in history? And they say, well, Latinos never really did anything. They just want to be white, which we could get into that for a little bit. But what do you think about that?
Well, of course, some of it is just not knowing history, but it's actually more deeper than that. I think when it comes to, sociologically speaking, people who have written about these two groups either see them as natural allies, which, okay, is kind of a little weird, or like two groups that are inherently in conflict. In fact, a sociologist in the early 70s said that whites tend to view Latinos as honorary blacks, whereas blacks view Latinos as honorary whites.
Really?
And
Wait,
yeah,
wait.
this sociologist noticed this in the
Who said
70s.
this? Who said this?
I forgot, I saw the quote, but I can't remember the name, but it's from the 70s. So,
Okay, got it.
So, and
this is good to know, so I can use it. Okay, good. Go ahead.
yeah, so I think you can't really understand unless you understand African American and European immigrants. So, of course, Irish immigrants were often seen as being allies to Black people, or seen more like Black people, to the point that some people thought like they were just naturally got along. Which to our contemporary eyes, that might seem ridiculous, but in the 19th century, that's something people thought was possible. And of course, the Irish definitely would embrace a lot of anti-Black attitudes that culminated in the 1863 draft riots in New York City. And of course, also the experience with Eastern and Southern European immigrants. So believe it or not, in Chicago, African Americans and Italians actually created interracial organizations to address discrimination.
Really?
Yeah. It's a book called, I forget the author's name. I can't pronounce the name, but it's called White on Arrival. It looks like Italian immigrants in Chicago from the 1890s to 1945. Of course, the thing about the Eastern European immigrants, while it's true that they did experience discrimination and mistreatment, at the end of the day, they were still legally white and could definitely exercise their whiteness. That was always true.
Yeah.
And not to mention, it's two groups that have different histories, and typically nobody looks at an Italian and a Black person seem as the same, just not possible. So given that history of European immigrants who at one time were compared with African American migrants from the South to the North, and in fact that after 3-generation European immigrants mostly became on economic parity with whites, mostly government don't get wrong, there are people who did work hard, but a lot of that was government policies as well. African Americans naturally just have a lot of suspicion about immigrant groups, and unfortunately that goes to Latinos, even though there are significant differences between Latinos and European immigrants. And one thing we don't talk about a lot, in the 20th century, when European immigrants came, there were also Mexican immigrants who came, and they had a totally different experience. There's a good book on this called Generation of Exclusion, and it pretty much looks at in a project where a group of, I think scholars interviewed Mexican Americans in 1965. So it was pretty much a span of several generations. And this group of sociologists came and they actually found about 700 of their descendants. And what they found, that the assimilation process was not the same as European immigrants. Many of them still lived among other Latinos. They didn't really identify themselves as American. They still thought themselves as Mexican American. And also when it came to upward mobility, it kind of stagnated after the 3rd generation. So, I mean, it's not a good predictor of the future, but it's pretty much saying that over the course of the 20th century, Mexican immigrants just did not achieve the same upward mobility as European immigrants did. So that's important history to recognize.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much the root of it, is really just viewing Latino immigrants in the same lens as Europeans, even though when it comes to Latin American immigrant, it's a history of imperialism, invasion from the United States, and the United States for the most part was never seen as a refuge for a lot of Latin Americans. So there's differences, but yeah, I don't know, it's just I think that history just animates a lot of people's attitudes.
Yeah, I know that that during the census, a lot of people like to point this out, that Mexicans were considered white because they had to be put down white on paper, right? And because of that, there's a myth, I'll just say myth, that majority of Latinos want to be white and put down white, where some of it is true and some of it is false. I go out on the limb to say that a lot of this whiteness is actually forced upon Latinos. For example, if usually Latin people, you leave that race part blank, it gets filled in by the administrator somewhere, wherever we at. There's other parts, which I'm going to show right now, where these are documents, and you see the race box.
Yep.
You see Asian, Black, Caucasian, and Latino are at the same box. Native American and unknown. This is a perfect example of being forced to classify as white. If somebody doesn't know what Caucasian is, they just probably thought that's just a English way or an American way to say Latino because Latino's right next to it. So these are pure examples that I'm showing, and that I'm saying that the forcedness of whiteness is being forced upon Latinos, which I think is completely unfair. And the reason why I believe it's so easy for society or for people to do so is because we're viewed as an ethnicity and not a race.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, this is something I'm trying to change. I'm trying to see if I could try to get some group backing with actually trying to change that, try to at least make us a race. But with that being said, with the forced whiteness and stuff, do you see some of that actually happening within society upon that forced whiteness on Latin groups?
Yeah, there's been a lot of people have written. I've seen like a lot of columnists and opinion writers, journalists argue that Latinos will become white, but they argue it because they said through intermarriage, because like it's like around half of Latino men and women marry white people, but of course a lot of people get married. That's not representative of a lot of people are increasingly not getting married, so that's a little too conservative in my opinion. But no, I think so. It's a lot of it just putting Latinos on that trajectory of European immigrants, where European immigrants were seen as, well, socially seen as others, and eventually became accepted as whites. And I don't know, people say the same thing about Asians, that Asians will eventually become white. But no, I mean, I do know that census controversy, and I always thought that was because of confusion, because Latinos just don't fit into Americans' understanding of race. Because it's not a race. You have Latinos are Black, Asian, white, indigenous, and it just doesn't fit neatly into our, like, really America's simplistic understanding of how people racially identify. But in terms of pushing the whiteness, it's funny. I went to I went to a conference in New York City it was on Latinos in the public arts. So pretty much talking about how a lot of art museums will value art from Latin America, but not U.S. born Latinos. And at the end of the conference, a woman who unfortunately passed away, she was Afro-Puerto Rican. She told me, she was like, there's something a lot of people at this conference don't want to talk about. And that's the fact that there are people who are Latinos themselves, who are trying to push Latina dad to whiteness. And she said, you see that when sometimes they'll rename organizations that say Spanish American or Hispanic. I can't remember everything she said, but that was something that she noticed that people just didn't. That was the elephant in the room that nobody wanted to talk about. So yeah, we said push the whiteness. It's not just like external; it's also internal.
Yeah, and this is something that a lot of Latin people haven't spoken about or don't want to speak about. You probably know this, but Latinos, we're not a monolith.
Mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying? One group doesn't represent the whole group. For example, Mexicans don't represent us, Dominicans or Puerto Ricans or whatever. But in America, in the American mindset, they do, because they're into this Latin label, correct?
Yeah, largest group, and yeah, sure.
Exactly. And unfortunately, whoever their leader is, or whoever their leader is going to appoint, is going to be the spokesperson for all Latin people, which I believe is unfair, because Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans, Caribbean, Latin people have different plights and different outlook on life, and different adversities. Even though white supremacy is a global thing, we all experience it and stuff, but either way, we do have some differences there. Some people might call it tribalism, and I might agree to that also, but majority of the time they don't represent us as a whole. Do you see that might be a little problematic? And if so, what is your opinion on that?
In terms of people trying to represent all Latinos?
Yeah, as like one group representing all.
Yeah, that's always been problematic, because, like I said, there definitely, don't get me wrong, when it comes to Latinos in the United States, there are overlaps, but there are significant differences as well. I mean, like I said, you have Latinos who are white, some who are black, and they live in different regions of the country. And, you know, a Mexican American who lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I live, isn't going to have the same experience as somebody who's in Los Angeles. Or same with Dominicans in New York versus Dominicans who live, where are Dominicans, other communities like Pennsylvania, where I'm from, even though there's some parallels. But no, that's always been a problem. I think my biggest issue too is social class. A lot of the people who try to be spokesperson for Latinos, like what's the one journalist who he used to write for Fusion and appeared on Telemundo, no, not Telemundo, Univision. Oh man, I'm blanking on his name. He's like this prominent Mexican journalist. I forget.
You got white hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm forgetting his name.
I'm blanking. Sometimes I think about, I'm like, a lot of time when it comes to the spokesperson, most of them are like upper middle class. Sometimes they're immigrants, and the fact in their home country, wherever it was, they were actually of a privileged class. And I think I never liked the idea of people who are from a privileged background in the United States and outside the United States trying to speak for everybody, even people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds that they probably can't even relate to or never lived.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm gonna segue into something I don't know if you've seen me talking about, but it's a little controversial. Mm-hmm. Some people might say I'm inventing it. Right? The concept of Anglo-Hispanics.
White Hispanic, yeah.
Anglo-Hispanics. I have my own definition for Anglo-Hispanics. Anglo-Hispanic is an individual like Cameron Diaz, Louis C.K., Canelo, who you would not know they were Latin American until they let you know that they're Latin American, right? But until then, they're walking around with white privilege, and they're walking around white as all hell.
Like Ted Cruz.
And until they find it convenient for them to remind you, by the way, I am X, Y, and Z Mexican, Dominican, or whatever the case is.
I thought Cameron Diaz her parents were from Spain, if I'm correct.
Well, a lot of people like to lump in Spain into this whole Latinidad type of thing, which I reject.
Mm-hmm. It's not the same.
It's not the same. We have two different cultures, and also on top of that, Spaniards don't even see us as family. Let's keep it real.
Just the same language. That's it.
That's basically it. And the thing is, the way we speak Spanish, exactly. It's like English. Black Americans speak English one way. If you go to England, they speak it. Chup Cheerio. You know what I'm saying? So all of that other stuff. So water. Can I get some water? You know what I'm saying? So it's very different. It's very different. So my thing is with Anglo-Hispanics and lumping in all Latin people in one box and all this other stuff, right? Do you think, in your opinion, that would be something that you should separate within Latin people and within our society? We should separate the Anglo ones that could benefit from minority benefits because they are Hispanic, right? Separate them and actually say, no, you guys are Anglo so-and-so, and give the community, which are brown, black, indigenous, their own thing, and you guys, because you guys already have the privilege of whiteness. Do you think that's a fair comparison or no?
I can see why you said that's controversial. When it comes to Latino identity, I mean, I think you have to embrace it in all of its like rich diversity, and that includes the white Latinos. They definitely, I think the census does a pretty decent, okayish job on knowing who's like a white Latino, black Latino, not necessarily indigenous. I don't think it has figured that out yet. But no, because I can't imagine somebody from like Argentina, and I have friends from Argentina because they're my graduate peers who are like white as Costa Rica, Argentina, white as day. Like I wouldn't know unless they told me. But I
Yeah,
think that's still part of like Latino identity. I think it's important to people acknowledge that and keep that.
of course.
So yeah.
Because let me tell you something real quick.
Hmm.
Me, right? You, right?
Hmm.
If we're in New York City and the stop and frisk law is still in effect, best believe me and you are going to get stopped and frisked.
Yes.
I'm brown. You're heavily melanated. You're black.
Hmm.
They're going to see us as the same. Let's just say she's not, but I'm giving an example. Let's just say this individual right here is Argentinian.
Hmm.
On the paper label, she's considered Hispanic. You think she's going to get stopped and frisked? Hell
No.
to the no. She's going to get her little small dog with her Starbucks and her Ugg boots, and she's going to walk on out of there, right?
Hmm.
Again, this individual, even though I'm just giving you an example, but this individual will be considered a Anglo-Hispanic.
Hmm.
They do not go through the same things that we go through. And on top of that, and I'll take it one step further, they don't even see us or themselves as family. They see themselves as completely different. To even point, I might even say that they see themselves as Spaniards.
Hmm.
And the caste system in Latin America, presents this, extraordinarily well with the whole caste system of, I
Oh
think
yeah.
was it Penis Solares or whatever.
Hmm.
Those are the ones who are Spaniard, 100% Spaniard, but born outside of Spain. They
Hmm.
have a name for this. So saying Anglo Latino, or I'm sorry, Anglo Hispanic isn't far fetched. A lot of people want to go through the definition of, well, Anglo means English and all this other stuff. And all I say is, well, if Anglo means something different, then why in certain Anglo caucuses and meetings and stuff, Spain, the European Union and Spain and all these European nations are included, and Portugal are included in these Anglo caucuses and meetings and things like of that nature if they're not considered Anglo. So this is my pushback to that. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
again, by me showing you this and telling you my opinion, what do you think?
I still can, I don't know, I still can imagine separating it because I just think it's still part of the whole, Latino identity. I mean, I think if you really were interested, I think a better person to talk to is Julian Valera's. I have his contact information, but
Okay.
he's the founder of Latino Rebels, the blog, a blog that I've actually had a
Yeah.
chance to write for.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's half white. One of his parents is white. One of his parents is white American. One of his parents are Puerto Rican, and he
Yeah.
identifies as a white Latino. But he does speak a lot about the racism among Latinos and does get criticism for it. He was one of the first people to speak about police killings
Yeah.
before it blew up, about Annie Lopez.
Because this is the reason why I say this. This is the reason why I say this, and they will point out again. I'm using this as an example.
Mm-hmm.
They will point out somebody like this
Mm-hmm.
and say, "Well, Hispanics are doing good. She owns 10 different franchise, supermarkets."
Mm-hmm.
And then you will say, then how come the Latino neighborhoods are still run down?
Yeah, there definitely is that selectivism when people try to
Exactly. So
measure the success. You're right about that.
exactly. So again, the individuality or whatever the case is, I see it in a different lens. I see that as these are Anglo Hispanics who are unfortunately they're just labeled Hispanics because it will whatever, but they don't see themselves or have the same experience as the majority of Latinos. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And there's a reason why I'm choosing these words are different,
Mhm.
Latinos and Hispanics, right?
I get what you mean. It does. I mean, I know that's a tension because there was actually in the blog I mentioned, there was an article about, I forget the actress name, but she actually spoke at the Oscars where she had like, she purposely had like a really thick Spanish accent, and it seemed like she was saying anus instead of annual. I I'm blanking on her name, but she's Colombian, and there was a criticism about her. It was like, in Colombian society, she's kind of privileged because she's white, but then you get these like white Latinos in Latin America who are privileged and benefits all that. Then they get to the United States and they just exert their ethnic identity to the point that they try and make themselves not appear as white.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
So
This is the reason why I told you it was a little controversial. So I
I
just
know,
feel,
I understand, but I know the tension actually.
yeah.
I've seen that about white Latinos who privilege in Latin America and they get here and they try to like, distance themselves from their whiteness.
Yeah. But then later on they go right back into that whiteness and fit in right fine. But exposed man, thank you very much for being here. I didn't mean to get you on here for so long, but
It's okay.
um hopefully you had a great experience. Don't be a stranger. Definitely come
Mhm.
back. I'll definitely want to see if I can have you for more episodes to talk about some of the articles you wrote about some of the Latin things that happened in the 60s and
Oh yeah, I'd be
some of
more
the
than willing
rebellions.
to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Most definitely. Tell the. I know before I wrap it up. I know you ended your channel, right? Your
Mhm.
exposed the Manosphere. Why is that?
Exhausting. It's been it was over 3 years of watching the content, and when you watch the Manosphere content, really after a year, or it gets redundant. And I was getting I got busier with stuff. There's other things I want to do, and I just couldn't keep up with it, especially because I wasn't
You
learning
should
much.
you should give that advice to other people. We both might know. That's a joke. I'm just playing. I'm playing.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm playing. But no, but thank you very much for coming in. Tell the people where they could find you. If you want.
So I am still on YouTube, so you can look at my America Rewind channel. That's actually where I am posting stuff. But you can follow me on Twitter at Aaron Fountain Jr. At Aaron Fountain Jr. My Twitter hashtag. But you're going to get loaded with boring news articles because I don't share a lot of personal stuff on there. But yeah, like I said, YouTube just America Rewind, and that's more about American history. And I have a video on there about the 1990 Wynwood Puerto Rican Rebellion in Miami, as well as I'm making a video on when the South hated football in the early 20th century. So I'll be talking about various aspects of American history on that channel.
Oh, okay. Cool. And mind you, everybody, all the links will be down below. I'll definitely link them up in there. So with that being said, Expose the Manosphere, thank you very much for coming in. I'm gonna catch everybody later. Peace. All right, so that was an interview with Expose the Manosphere. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember his channel down below. Definitely go check that out. Remember, go check out my interview that I had with Art. Definitely go check that out. And remember, go check out my cousin's music, Ramon 15. Definitely go check that out. Really hot stuff. If you guys want to hit me up on Instagram and Twitter at the same name, radical_Latino_. And also remember if you want to donate, go to my Cash App, $Radical Latino, or go to my website, radicallatino.com, and donate right there. And I'm gonna leave you guys with my 2 favorite quotes. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And if black and brown unity does not happen within my lifetime, I might not change the world, but I might inspire the mind that will. With that being said, I'm gonna catch y'all later. Peace!